All right, so free agency is rocking and rolling, and the Avalanche, of course, have made some deals. Do we like the deals? Are there other players that we were hoping that they would sign? And now former Avs, have found new teams. A lot to get to on a busy free agency period right here on Locked On Avalanche.
Your Locked On Avalanche, your daily podcast on the Colorado Avalanche. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of Locked On Avalanche, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Chris Maselli. With me, as always, Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. Thank you for tuning in and making it your first listen of the day. That's always appreciated. Make sure to follow us on our social media outlets, LOPN_Avalanche on Twitter. Locked On Avalanche on Instagram. Questions, comments, concerns, and opinions, lockedonavalanche@gmail.com. And follow us on our YouTube channel over on YouTube. Hit subscribe, get notified when a new show goes live. Definitely subscribe to our subtext. Link to that is in the show notes below. Subscribe, and you can chat with Kyle and I one-on-one about all the goings on with the Avalanche, especially this offseason, be it the draft or, of course, free agency, which is well underway, sir. And that's what this show is pretty much going to be about. So as you can see on our rundown, we'll get to Avs from last year that are no longer part of the team, which we kind of expected. We were expecting kind of an overhaul with this roster. It's what we are getting. And let's start there because it was a free agency is always this, it's a fun time to watch because players are going all over the place. You like seeing teams maybe reach a little bit more for certain players, and we're just, the mixing and matching is just so much fun to watch for me. Took a couple hours for the Avalanche to make their first move, but eventually they did. And in that first day, they made a couple of them. We'll get to them all, but I want to get your take on how you feel that they did so far a couple days into the free agency period.
And see, Chris, this is the thing I love about our friendship. We have been cautiously talking about how we feel about it because we've been saving it for right here, right now. And I feel like I might be a little bit higher up on the Avalanche free agency signing because you mentioned teams going out and reaching, and like a lot of teams like Toronto, a lot of the moves they're making, it's a lot of shifted identities with teams. And I feel like Colorado is one of those that really shifted identity through free agency on how they're going to approach this next season. This feels like a we're not going to take it tour. And they are really they're bulking up and they're getting a little nastier. And I'm excited to see what this team looks like when they finally hit the ice.
I am too. I absolutely am, because it is going to have a different look to it. So you do want to see how that all plays out. And I put up on Twitter, and for those that don't follow, I put up, and it's got a lot of people are discussing it, and that's fine. That's what it's there for, is just bring up, drum up conversation on how, like, the signings initially, I liked them, but I think that was in the midst of all of these signings happening. And then you remove yourself from it for a day or day and a half, and you kind of like really take full inventory of everything that went on. And I still like the moves. I just wonder if they could have made other signings, and we'll get to what those other signings could be. But I want to bring up the ones that they did make. And their first one was to bring in Wood from the New Jersey Devils. And that is the one a lot of people are really wondering right now, to bring in Miles Wood for a 6-year deal. And the AAV is very low. It's 2.5. Okay, that was a deal. Then they signed Jonathan Drouin, which I think is an interesting contract. It's only 1 year, $825,000. They did sign Andrew Cogliano. They bring him back for $825K. And they bridged Bo Byram. And I feel like that deal got just lost in everything that's going on, which is very strange. But that's a 2-year deal, 3.85 AAV. So clearly they bridge him. and they could essentially bridge him again if they wanted to after 2 years. So we'll see where that goes. But as far as the unrestricteds go, Drouin and Wood are kind of like were there two big names that they went. And like I said, like I don't think they're bad moves, but they are kind of like the quintessential Avalanche move as of late, in that they're gonna give guys that maybe not that anybody gave up on Wood. I don't really think that they gave up on Miles Wood, but especially with Drouin, it's like we're gonna see. We'll try to pluck these guys away and put them in the Avalanche system, and hopefully they can just accelerate. And that's especially the case with Drouin, without a doubt, to bring him back, match him back up with Nathan MacKinnon, obviously. But I don't know. And like I said, we'll go through like some of these other deals that happen, and I just feel like there was some other meat on the bone of other deals that went around the league that were in the wheelhouse of the Avalanche and within the signing dollar amount that they could have afforded, and they didn't go that route.
And we'll talk about it in the next segment about those they didn't bite on. But you mentioned like the dollar that fits the Avalanche way. I feel like this entire offseason with every move, all the way tracking back to Ryjo, this is an identity thing. This is a cohesion thing. These are attitudes, not just players. This is like Jonathan Drouin. It's the equivalent of a player we'll talk about in a little bit, who's playing in Florida right now. That same kind of output, but Nathan MacKinnon's buddy.
Yeah, but that doesn't sell me on it.
No,
though.
It shouldn't. Well,
right.
You're paying him $875,000.
Yeah.
Whoop-a-dee-doo.
Right.
That's what you could possibly get when he plays, when Jonathan Drouin is going and he's got a team around him. He's not bad. And for that kind of money, this is a steal. So this is your beakers and Bunsen beakers and pouring the chemicals. This is your lab experiment. Now, Miles Wood, I know a thing or two about Miles Wood. He is a former Devil, and I will tell you that fan base is heartbroken that Miles Wood is no longer a New Jersey Devil. Yes, he had hip surgery. I get it.
Yeah.
But what he can bring to a team is exactly what the Colorado Avalanche need and thrive on. If he could give you a healthy season, which he can, I know you're looking at his numbers and you're complaining like he hasn't really hit 40 points. Trust me, with this team, you don't need him to. He's going to be facilitating the puck. He's a grindy guy. Everybody talks about physicality and wanting to send McDermott out every time something goes wrong. Miles Wood is your answer, but hey, he could play hockey too.
Yeah, and he's got a lot of speed. So, and that's of course what they like. Yeah, I don't mind that signing. I don't mind either one of those signings. The 6 years was a shocker to me, an absolute shocker. And they went that long to get his AAV down to doing it. So it's a digestible contract in terms of the AAV. And you can always move on from him if you wanted to bury that contract in a few years. But man, like 6 years is a long for a guy of his stature. It was just a surprising term. And
you're looking at the term like he's going to live it out here. We just saw EJ disappear.
Yeah.
6 years for Miles Wood feels like let's put him back on his skates. Let's give him a little bit of that Avalanche treatment. Get him up to 40, 50 points. Wow, Miles Wood is really thriving in Colorado. And then in 2 or 3 years, right out the door. And it's a project. It's a flip. This whole move feels like you're not.
Yeah.
If he doesn't translate, if the health thing does become an issue, you're not really hurting yourself when it comes to money. But if it does start flourishing and he really starts producing, if this is something you don't want to keep on the team, or you can get more value than what he's giving you, you could ship him out in a package and you can look like a genius.
I know, but I don't like the word project right now. The Avalanche don't want a project. They want to win. You know what I mean? And I get what you're saying in terms of if it works out, they look like geniuses again. And the same could be true for both of their big name signings, Drouin and Wood.
Mhm.
And if Drouin pans out, they only got him for a year. And if he has a great season and he hightails it out of there, and then you got nothing after that because he had a great season because he played with the Avalanche and maybe he's going to be on line with Nathan MacKinnon every once in a while and he puts up some gaudy numbers or better numbers. And a team's like, hey, he found his spark. Let's get him out of Colorado. So now you've got nothing from him. And I know I'm thinking way in the future, but this is the reality of it. You only got him for a year right now in Drouin. But for Wood, it's like, I like him. I like what he can bring to this team. I think he's going to sit in nicely on a bottom six role. And I like what he can bring. And I don't want to complain about it. I just, I would have liked 3 or 4 years at 2.5, an extra 2, whatever. I mean, moves can be made if they need to be with him down the road. I'm not too concerned about it. But for the Avs, I think it was just their moves were the 2 trades for Johansson and for Colton. Like that was their big moves. It wasn't going to come during free agency, which I think just being a fan, you like to see that. You like to see, you see all these other teams signing guys left and right. You want to be a part of that. And the Avalanche made a couple signings that I think were okay. We'll have to see how they pan out, honestly. That's true for anybody. But I want to be in the position of signing a couple guys that are going to come in and sit beautifully with this team, not maybes and not let's hope that they do. And to me, like that's just what the Avalanche did with those 2 guys. With Colton, I feel good. With Johansson, I feel good. So it's almost like 50-50 right now. Like 2 of the guys that you traded for, I think those are 2 thumbs up. And then the 2 guys that you signed, it's like 2 thumbs trending. It's not 2 thumbs down by any stretch of imagination, but we don't know until they start playing if these pan out. But this is Avalanche, signing 101 for the past couple of years. It's just, hey, let's take some guys on a cheap deal, throw them into our system, have them play with some playmakers, and we'll get the best out of them.
And real quickly to end the topic, with Miles Wood, with 6 years at that AAV, they're locking him in there. No matter how good he does, it's not going to be the Drouin thing. He's going to get in here and flourish, and we're going to have to overpay him, and he's going to go somewhere else. You're locking Miles Wood in at that rate. And I feel like there's more confidence in Miles Wood and what he's going to bring and be a part of the Avalanche. In 2 or 3 years, you're going to be like, what a steal. We got Miles Wood. And look, he's not even a cap hit, but he's providing 40, 50 points on this team. And he's such a battery. He's a unit. He's almost like Nichushkin light. What a steal this move was. I feel like we're going to look back on this move a little bit more fondly.
I hope so. I genuinely do, because if he's outplaying it, 2.5 is an absolute steal. Like, and the Avalanche have a track record of kind of being able to do that. Look at the Nathan MacKinnon deal.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying he's Nathan MacKinnon, people. Relax. I'm just
heard it here first.
They're good at, giving a team-friendly number to a guy who outplays that contract, but that guy's locked in for a handful of seasons. And we didn't even mention Jack Johnson, which they brought back at $775,000. I don't know why. I don't know why. Like, great guy, been around for a long time. I guess he's good in the locker room, but to me, I don't understand that signing.
I don't get it.
I don't get it. All right. What about some other deals that went around the league that we were looking at the Avs? Like, did you put a play in for that guy? We'll talk about those in a second. But first, we're going to hear from FanDuel. And you can take your first swing at betting at Major League Baseball on FanDuel, and you can get 10 times your first bet amount in bonus bets back. There's up to $200. Just bet $20 and you'll land $200 in bonus bets, and that's win or lose. And I know Kyle is a big Atlanta Braves fan, And I've just been out of the loop with baseball, but you're telling me they're doing well, the Atlanta Braves.
8-game heater, best team in the league. No big deal.
So if you bet on the Braves, chances are you're going to have money in your pocket.
I mean, with a team with Acuna on the team, your bet's going to be fine with the Braves.
Well, if you do that over at FanDuel, the good thing about that, you can do it on a safe and secure app that's super easy to use. And when you win, like if you're betting on the Braves, not like if you're betting on the Rockies, you can get paid instantly. So there's no better place to bet on Major League Baseball than FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. There we go. So sign up today and visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get up to $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, the official sports partner of Major League Baseball. All right, so like we said, that's who the Avalanche. There's maybe a couple other signs. I mean, they have some more roster spots to fill out, so they do have to get some guys signed. They still have a couple,
and they got those 5 depth moves that they just kind of threw in there. They're like,
right,
we got them.
Right. So I mean, you have to sign Colton still. Like he is not signed. He's probably going to be in the $3 to $4 million range. You have that money thanks to the LTIR, which is going to come from Gabe Landeskog. When that happens, they should have like $3 to $4 million left to sign a couple guys. Like Ben Myers is one of them,
which is still more than Calgary had heading into the free agency period.
Yeah, right. So, so they have a couple million to play with, and when you're looking at some of the other moves that went on around the league, I was a little surprised. And it's odd because you look at it and you're like, why didn't the Avalanche do that? It's not that simple. I mean, they very well might have put in and called the agents of these teams, and that's why they're free agents, because they are free to choose where they want to go. And in the end, maybe they just didn't want to sign with Colorado. We don't, stuff like that, we don't really know. And maybe Avalanche fans are taking it a little personal because it's like, hey, we're not that far removed from a Stanley Cup championship. Why wouldn't you want to come here? There's a lot of other factors that come into it. But for whatever reason, some guys didn't sign here, and you saw these contracts going out very short term. That's another reason why the Miles Wood one, it was surprising, because not a lot of guys were getting anything over like 2 or 3 years, with the exception of Miles Wood and everybody on the Islanders. Everybody's getting 6 and 7 year deals between those two factors. Everybody else was getting 1, 2, and 3. Not even like 1 and 2. So you're seeing a lot of 1-year contracts. Guys are betting on themselves. Say, I'll go through this again next year when the cap goes up, and I'll bet on myself, and maybe I can up my dollar amount in another year. But you saw guys going for pretty cheap, which was a little bit to be expected because the cap didn't go up that much. And you're sitting there wondering, like, where were the Avs on that one? Were there guys that went around to other teams where you were like, that's someone that I thought could be on the Avs radar?
Now, this is not a hindsight, it's 2020 thing. This was me in the moment on the day of free agency. When we landed Miles Wood, I felt like that was it. I felt like that is the most Avalanche move. And we talked about it a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And during the playoffs, the everydayers know we went down position by position, every free agent that was out there, and we mentioned Miles Wood for a little bit, and I felt like that was it. And when Drouin came in, I felt like that was a bonus, like super home run. It was almost like that moment of we're getting the cup again. And I'm watching all these other deals go around, and nothing felt like, yes, it was. You talked about the Avalanche don't want another project player. All these deals felt like project players. Like short terms, like you're getting in, you're hoping to make it to the next salary cap increase.
Right.
And the names that were flying off, none of them were enough to stop the day where you're like, I can't believe this happened.
Well, there was 2. The Ryan O'Reilly one was a little surprised. What do you do? Like 4.5? I think it was 4.2. And I think it was 4.5 to Nashville. But the Matt Duchene one,
I knew this is where this conversation was going, and I just wanted you to get it out there.
Yeah. I'm, and I know, he is very divisive in the Avalanche fan base. The people who dislike him are a lot more vocal than the people who do like him. Kyle's looking around. To me, I've moved on. Like we reached the pinnacle. We got the cup. So it's like one of those things where it's like, everything else that came before it, all's forgiven. And even before that, me personally, like I had moved on from that a while ago. I think he went through his rows and what he said, I want to make a push in the playoffs and then go through all of that of not doing that. I think he faced his maker for at least a couple years. I would have welcomed him back. And he was making $8 million, I think, maybe $8.25 million with Nashville. They cut him loose and he signs a 1-year, $3 million deal. $3 million with Dallas. I mean, maybe he doesn't want to go back to Colorado. I get all that. I get that. But good Lord, like even if you hate him, he can put up numbers. He can. And we're talking about 2C and second line guys. He is a great second line producer, and that would have been perfect for the Avalanche. And if you want to say, he's a locker room, like that was years ago. People grow up, people change. I don't think that's him anymore. So I'm sure there's a lot of Avs fans listening to this right now that are completely disagreeing with me, and that is completely fine. I get it. You want to hold a grudge, I completely get it. But that's not a lot of money for him for a single year. Maybe the Avalanche didn't want to go down that road. I don't know. That was a little bit surprising.
You need to back up the timeline just a little bit. Why is Matt Duchene a free agent?
Well, because Nashville wants to go in a different direction.
And if you look at Matt Duchene's point total, what he's been putting up over the last couple of years, would not that warrant sticking around in Nashville?
You would think. Yeah.
So something smells really, really funny, and it's probably not his country music playing. If Barry Trotz is coming in there and he wants a winning culture, and one of the first things he does is buy out Matt Duchene, and then that just screams free agency, sign me. And then this is the deal that comes out. This means the tires have been kicked and something is still really, really smelly. And Dallas is like, we don't care. We're Dallas. Come in here. We just lost Corey Perry. We need something similar.
I mean, it was going to be tough to get an equal amount of what he just was let go for. Like that, those dollars were not going around. You know what I mean? You're not going to sign for that. So
he's got more jerseys than he has playoff wins.
Yeah. We'll get to this next, but Eric Johnson is making more than him next year.
That should tell you something. It's not can he come into Colorado and produce? That's not the question. There's something going on where just teams are saying, we're not doing the Matt Duchene thing. You never hear about his play. It's he loves country music. He does this. He does this. It's never his on the ice thing, and he's never well spoken of.
Maybe you're right. I don't know. It was just a little bit surprising to see that number, and that's where I'm going with a lot of these. Is you just see the number and you're like, man, the Avs could have pulled the trigger on that. Daniel Sprong was another one that I was really high, like, yeah. And the Kraken released him, I think the day before. Yeah, I think it was the day before free agency, and you were like, wow, that would be perfect.
Kyler Yamamoto was mine.
Yamamoto was traded to Detroit, and then they cut him loose. They couldn't come up with a deal, and he's still out there right now.
I think he's with Seattle right now. I think
did he go? You're right. Yes, you're right.
He got picked up with Seattle, and when I looked at that deal, I said that would have been the automatic give the cup to Colorado if they would have picked up everybody they did and Kyler Yamamoto. Forget about it.
That would have been a great pickup. Yeah, but Sprong went for $2 million. $2 million. And then Connor Sheary was another guy that I was really into. He went for $2 million. And then the kicker was Evan Rodriguez. You're like, man, a lot of people were thinking that he was probably priced out. even after the Colton trade. And I was still like, I don't know. I think I think he liked being here. I think he kind of wanted to hang around, and he leaves for the Florida Panthers for $3 million. I think he went for 4 years, and I was like, I mean, it can't be a term thing. They just gave Wood a 6-year term. So what were they afraid of with that? So that's where I'm just like, man, you had some options there that kind of fell through. And how we're saying, like, after you put Gabe Landeskog on LTIR, after you sign Colton, you should still have in the $3 to $4 million range. You could have signed one of those guys, but then you are cutting it close for the other ones. I get it. So, but if you do one of them in place of the Wood one, not the Drouin one, because that's pretty cheap. This is where it just gets kind of like a little bit convoluted, and maybe it's just easier said than done.
I feel like, the long story short on that one, I think Wood has a higher upside than Erod, because you have a sample size, a proven sample size with Erod. I just feel like Miles Wood can bring you more.
I mean, I guess that remains to be seen, just because you haven't seen him with the team, and you know what Evan Rodriguez can do. It's just for a season. You would have liked him to hang around and do it for another couple of years, but
trade deadline's coming up.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I just
he can come back.
I mean, I'm just looking at deals going left and right that are pretty low, and guys that I feel like could have helped the Avs. And again, we don't know if they were in on them and they just were beat out by another team, which could have been the case for some or all of these guys. Who knows? There were former Avs who obviously have moved on, and we knew that some of them were going to. Eric Johnson, well, we knew that was going to happen. And like I just said, he goes to Buffalo, and he's
mind-boggling.
I thought he was going to be in the 1.5 to 3 on the very high end range. And he gets, what do you get, like 3.85 or something from Buffalo? From Buffalo.
3.8, like nothing makes sense, but don't tell Buffalo.
Matt Nieto and Lars Eller both go to Pittsburgh.
Gravy.
Maltsev, and Ryan Graves. Maltsev goes to, where do you go? The Kings.
The Kings. And I think he's going to do great there.
Yeah, I that was the guy that I really wanted them to bring back. I was hoping. Like we mentioned, Erod going to the Panthers, and JT Compher. That was one who a lot of people were saying, is just because the free agency group was pretty thin. He was higher up on the list, and he goes to Detroit for 5.1 per year, or AAV. That was surprising to me, because I don't like, number one, I don't think he's worth that dollar amount. And Detroit is doing things very methodical, and they're doing things they really have.
I think you froze up for just a little bit, but when it comes to like the methodical approach to the Detroit Red Wings and how they're comprising that team, there you are.
Okay.
And like their methodical approach to putting that team together with all of these like smart, like Moneyball type moves where you're like, oh yeah, I can see the value there, and they're getting them on the cheap. And for goodness sake, I laughed out loud when they had "Welcome to Detroit" JT Compher on their socials, and it's like $5 million for JT Compher. 4.5 made me laugh. 4, you'd be that's 3.5 is a JT Compher number in Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to the devil for $5 million.
Yeah.
I'm secretly laughing on the inside. I'm like, Detroit, you don't know what you're doing. But
no, and that's kind of like what was my thinking was when I was saying, like, they're going about this. This is the longest rebuild I've ever seen in my life for any team. They're always just seem to be like on this rebuild. They haven't gone backwards, believe it or not, which is kind of impressive, but it's so slow, this progression that they're doing. But they have a plan. I am shocked that JT Confer is part of that plan. Shocked, because I don't think he can add anything more than he already does for that team. And they're giving him a pretty nice contract to get them to the next level. I don't know. That one was a head scratcher. I didn't. I hope he proves me wrong, but
I do too.
I don't know. That one was a little bit surprising to me.
Yeah, please don't go tell Locked On Red Wings or Locked On Sabres how big of a mistake they made. Let it be our little secret to all the everydayers.
Yeah. So, and pretty much that's where we stand right now with the Avs.
JoJo's a Tampa Bay Lightning.
He is there. There was some other moves.
Moment of silence for that loss.
We'll pick them back up when they release them.
You betcha.
When they put them on waivers, we'll pick them back up.
Let's go one more again.
Yeah. So if they do, come on, just what are we doing here? If they pick them up on waivers for the fifth time or something like that. But it's not over yet. There's still a couple moves that the Avalanche have to make to fill out this roster. So maybe some things happen, but the big names and the big moves are pretty much done. So we have a good idea of what this roster looks like, save for a couple names. So we'll see where it goes. What do you guys think? I've been talking to people all weekend, but I want to see what's going on in the comment section for YouTube for this one. Are we happy? Do you feel kind of like me? Like I like the moves that they made, but there was some other ones that maybe they could have done that. Like, where do you stand on all this stuff? We want to hear. Fire away in the comment section, and especially on our subtext too. We'll be talking on that as well. All right, that's going to wrap it up. We have not even gotten to this schedule yet. So much has happened even since the schedule dropped. So we'll probably be talking about that tomorrow, unless other stuff happens with the Avs. So until then, that is going to wrap it up. Thank you for making this your first listen of the day. That is always appreciated. He is Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. I am Chris Maselli, and this is the Locked On Avalanche podcast. And we'll see you guys tomorrow.